Oh, we're doing it. Huh? We're live. What's up, everybody? Haven't seen you in a minute. It's Ron Placone here, reporting for Status Coup. Excuse me while I awkwardly adjust my glasses. The date is Monday, May 6th. Please like and share this stream. Please make sure you're subscribed because they unsubscribe people all the time. And it's Monday, May 6th, 2024. We're coming at you for a quick stream. We're going to be chatting it up. Please do have some chats ready, have some questions ready, have some super chats ready if you're able, because it's going to help Johnny F on the ground. Coming up later today at around 6, between 6 and 6:30 p.m. Eastern. You know how these things go. It varies. But Johnny F, John Farina, will be going live at the Rage for Gaza in New York City. So please, all your super chats go to help keep him on the ground there. That was a weird choice of phrase. You guys know what I meant. It helps on the ground journalism. Smash the like button. Smash it. Smash it. We're going to be talking about the TikTok thing. We're going to be looking at it in depthly. And also, before we get started on that, I will say this. You know, I'm sure that all of you have been feeling a wide range of emotions the past couple weeks, seeing what's going on with the not just in Gaza and with the protests, and seeing the authoritarian violence that police have been committing. And I got to say this. I went to Indiana University, and that's one of the universities that has been making the news a lot. And there's mixed feelings, and I feel like these are mixed feelings we all share, because on one hand, it's very inspiring to see these young people out there protesting a genocide and making their voices heard, and not standing down, not stepping down, not being quiet. And that's inspiring. But it's also kind of overwhelming to see. And when I went to IU, we protested the Iraq war pretty much every week. And every week I'd be standing in the same place. A lot of that footage you're seeing, I stood in that same place years ago and protested the Iraq war. And so it's inspiring in some ways to see that young people are engaged and they're out there today protesting for the cause of peace. But it's also a little overwhelming, and in some ways a little heartbreaking, to see students today standing in the same place I stood many years ago. Because one thing that I didn't have, there was never a cop on top of the student union building with a gun pointed at us. That never happened. There were words exchanged, sure. Sometimes the cops would show up. They would be jerks, absolutely. But never at any point was I standing where I once stood, where kids are standing today. And did I see someone up there with a gun pointed at me? That never happened. But it's happening today. And that's just a lot to take in. And on another personal note, this weekend, I will be attending a wedding for a cousin of mine. And I have an older cousin named Joe. And my older cousin Joe, he went to a dance when he was younger. He's a bit older than me, my cousin Joe. And when he was in high school, he went to a dance with a girl named Allison Krause, who he stayed friends with. If you're thinking, that name rings a bell, why do I know that name, Allison Krause? It's because she was one of the Kent State students who was murdered protesting the Vietnam War. And I've talked to my cousin Joe about that before. He did know her. He wasn't at Kent State. He didn't go there. But they knew each other. And it'll be it's kind of trippy. I'm going to see him this weekend, and that'll be on my mind, knowing what his generation went through protesting the Vietnam War, knowing what my generation did protesting the Iraq war and knowing what this generation is going through now, protesting the genocide and other wars. And again, it's inspiring that the young people will not stop beating the drum for peace. But it's also so frustrating that we're still having to be out there, that we're still trying to turn around this imperialist machine. But we got to keep trying. So hope you don't mind. I started off mentioning that today. It was on my mind a lot. And, it's really something to take in. And I know we're all going through it. So please let me know your thoughts. I'd appreciate it very much. Let's get to the topic of the day now. So TikTok. So you guys know me. Digital rights is kind of my big lane. And there's a number of things going on with the TikTok ban that the House recently passed. And Biden has promised he'd sign it. There's a number of factors at play here, and I feel like we're only talking about one of them. Now, all of these factors are important. I'm not here to say one is more important than the other. They're just different, but they kind of combine to form the full story here. Now, one of those factors is the censorship component, which is a huge factor. That's the one everyone's talking about, as they should. However, there's a couple other things at play here that are really important to note. And I feel like these other things are being a little overlooked, not because they're not important, but just because, the censorship thing is very front and center, as it should be. But here's all three of the factors, okay? So first is the censorship element. The second is the financial element. And by financial, I mean corruption in our government, financial incentives that they have to demonize TikTok to really bring forth their agenda for their own money-making schemes. And we're going to dive into more of that. And then the third very important piece here is the way this is being sold to the American people and the xenophobic nonsense that they're leaning on that people are falling for. So those are the three factors: the censorship component, which is a big factor, the financial component, which is also a big factor, and then, of course, the xenophobic nonsense they're using to sell it to the American people. We're going to break down all three of those. We're going to start with the censorship component. So, Colin, let's first go to the main YouTube video. We're not going to watch this entire hour, but this is Mitt Romney. And boy, talk about a guy who just, whenever you hear that guy talk, you're just like, how did this guy ever run for? He is like the most not charismatic guy and just so like milquetoast personified. He has the type of voice. He should be an audiobook narrator for books trying to help people suffering from insomnia. Like, that should be his job. He should just be up there like you hear his voice and he goes, I know that you might be having a hard time trying to sleep, and really, if you just concentrate hard on my really boring ideas as an elected official, you'll be able to fall asleep right now. So anyway, let's go to this hour clip real quick, because there's a few things I want to mention. Then we're going to watch kind of the meat of it here that Jordan Cheriton did a video on prior. But let's go to the link first, Colin, because this is kind of fascinating to me. First of all, one of the things you'll notice, they have comments turned off for the frickin' video. Can we see it? It's kind of interesting. By the way, if you're just tuning in, please do smash the like button. Splash, splash. There, they turned comments off. So let's go up a little bit. This is Blinken, Secretary Blinken, and Mitt Romney. Let's play a little bit. There's this weird elevator. Pause it for a second.
I get to ask the question.
There was that weird elevator music. And then he has this incredibly just boring greeting. Started from the beginning, Colin. Listen for the elevator music and really boring greeting. Check this out.
I don't know who gets to go off first, but I'm going to do that because I get to ask the questions. I'm not the questioner usually. Usually I'm the person trying to give answers.
And they have this annoying audio.
You ever watch Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood? There's a little train, and there's the little king, and he, the king is always right. Right as usual, King Friday. My kids say right as usual, King Romney. I mean, because I'm always up there with the answer. So that's enough.
Make it stop, Colin. Make it stop. It sounds like he's about to pitch you on a cult. It's there's just that boring elevator music. It sounds like he's about to sit down and be like, "Have you thought about your thetans?" All right, so let's go to the meat of this, where they really go full mask off. Jordan did a clip about this earlier. We're going to take a deeper dive into the whole TikTok situation, but let's start with that 2-minute clip.
Why has the PR been so awful? I know that's not your area of expertise, but you have to have some thoughts on that, which is, I mean, as you've said, why has Hamas disappeared in terms of public perception? An offer is on the table to have a ceasefire, and yet the world is screaming about Israel. It's like, why aren't they screaming about Hamas? Accept the ceasefire, bring home the hostages. Instead, it's all the other way around. I mean, typically the Israelis are good at PR. What's happened here? How have they and we been so ineffective at communicating the realities there? And
we're on an intravenous feed of information with new impulses, inputs every millisecond. And of course, the way this is played out on social media has dominated the narrative. And you have a social media ecosystem environment in which context, history, facts get lost, and the emotion, the impact of images dominates. And we can't discount that. But I think it also has a very, very, very challenging effect on the narrative.
Yeah, a small parenthetical point, which is some wonder why there was such overwhelming support for us to shut down potentially TikTok or other entities of that nature. If you look at the postings on TikTok and the number of mentions of Palestinians relative to other social media sites, it's overwhelmingly so among TikTok broadcasts. So I'd note that's of real interest, and the president will get the chance to make action in that regard.
Now, I know that between the two of them, they make wet paint seem interesting. And they sound about as boring as one can sound. But in that 2-minute clip, the stuff that they actually said, the stuff that they actually just boldly admitted to, if you just read between the lines a little bit and see what they're actually saying, and you really don't have to read in between the lines that much, they're pretty on the nose. They're just, again, really freaking boring. But they've just admitted to a lot, and just a 2-minute clip. So they keep using the word narrative. Did you notice that? They keep using the word narrative, control the narrative, control the narrative, control the narrative. They're single-handedly admitting that when it comes to information of war and peace, there's an agenda. And what is that agenda? Well, we already know this because we're already tuned into places like Status Coup, but the agenda is to uphold the status quo for the war machine. At the end of the day, the United States is an economy of war. And the corporations partake, Wall Street partakes, a couple people are getting really rich, and the government is willing to do the bidding. That's what we are. We're a corporate coup. We're a banana republic. And we just have a basic economy of war, which is completely immoral to the gills, obviously. Not only is it immoral, but it's completely unsustainable. That's why every empire in the history of ever has fallen. So the corporate media's job is to uphold that. So just by using the word narrative and narrative over and over again, they're just admitting to that. So what is challenging this narrative? Well, this IV feed, as they call it, of information. And images are dominating. Now what IV feed and images do you think they're referring to? They're referring to information from people who are there. They're referring to people talking about what's actually going on there. They're referring to journalists like Abby Martin, who have contact with people in Gaza who are telling them what's really going on. Because if it wasn't for that, we would just have the corporate narrative that's not telling you what's actually going on. The corporate narrative is giving you this highly propagandized explanation of what's actually happening over there. And if you want to know, well, what exactly is that highly propagandized, grossly selective assessment of what's really going on? Listen to someone like John Fetterman speak. Listen to someone like RFK speak. That's exactly how they want you to be talking about this. But it's not what's really happening. And that is what Mitt Romney and Blinken are upset about. They're upset that, well, now people can go on social media and they can see firsthand accounts. They can see what's really going on. They can see that, yes, this is a genocide, and they don't like that. Now, is there a ton of nonsense on social media? Abso-freaking-lutely. Is there a ton of bogus information on all the social media platforms? Abso-freaking-lutely. But that's not what they're mad about. That's not what Mitt Romney and Blinken are mad about. They're mad that people are finding out information about what's really going on, and they're reaching the conclusion that, hey, this is a genocide and this is not okay. And they're protesting on their college campuses. They're protesting in their communities. And that's what they're upset about. And they're openly admitting that, hey, on TikTok, there's a lot of this going on. So we got to shut that down. And it's easier for us to shut TikTok down. Why? Well, because it's a Chinese company and we're going to be able to use that to our advantage to demonize this. So that's one of the big pillars on why they want to get rid of TikTok. They don't like the fact that people are finding information that challenges the pro-war narrative of the United States corporate media machine. They don't like that, and that's why they want to get rid of TikTok. They just admitted it to you in that 2 minutes. So diving into the TikTok issue a little deeper, like I said, that's a big part of the story, but it's not the only thing. It's not the only thing that's going on in this legislation. There's something else happening too simultaneously. Let's go to the NPR piece, please, Colin, if we could. This senator tells NPR why he is leading a charge against TikTok and what comes next. The House has voted overwhelmingly to ban TikTok if its Chinese owners don't sell it. We're going to talk more about how this is a bunch of BS. So now the future of the wildly popular social media platform is in the hands of the Senate. Mark Warner chairs the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, and the Virginia Democrat is leading the push, along with Republican Marco Rubio of Florida. Warner spoke on All Things Considered, hosts early, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so here's his first statement. This is from Mark Warner. I'm not going to get into any of the classified intel we have on TikTok, but I will say this. I'm a tech guy. That's been my background. I strongly believe in the power of technology, and I think there's a lot of creativity on TikTok, and I love that. Blah, 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 blah. What is the problem is that TikTok, which is owned by ByteDance, is a Chinese-controlled company, and based on Chinese law, that company has no option other than to respond to the needs of the Communist Party of China. That takes primacy over return to shareholders or to consumers. Okay. We're going to take down both of these paragraphs and point out why they're complete nonsense and the real reason why Mark Warner is doing what he's doing. So let's talk at this. Let's start at the top paragraph. I'm not going to get to any of the classified intel, blah, blah, blah. I'm a tech guy. Mark Warner says that. Okay. Mark Warner is among the wealthiest. I think at one point he actually was the wealthiest. I don't know if he still is, but for all intents and purposes, it doesn't matter if he has the number one spot or not. He is among the wealthiest of everyone in both chambers of government, in the House and the Senate. He has tons of investment and a huge portfolio of assets. How big is it, you ask? Let's go to the Open Secrets page, Colin. Let's go to Open Secrets next. We're just going to kind of scroll it. So this is all the way from 2008. These are just his assets dating back to 2008. So just take a look at this. Look at all these different assets. how they're in all these interesting securities, investments. This is a portfolio, a mutual fund, insurance policies, securities investment, some government bonds in there, home builders, real estates. This is just from 2008. Let's go to a more, let's see, let's go up more. Let's see what's the highest year we can get. Let's go to 2018. Can we go to 2018? Let's see what 2018 brings us. We're just going to scroll. We can't really dive into all the details. We'll be here for like 12 hours. But you look at this. So look at 2018. Take a look at this. All these different portfolio of assets, emerging markets, Riverstone, Vanguard, Group Holdings, Qualified Charter Communications, insurance. Okay. So out of this huge portfolio of assets that he has, which even for an elected official, this is huge. Out of the huge portfolio of assets that he has, what is among them? Well, I'll tell you one of the many, many things among them is domestic software and platforms. So this guy, Mark Warner, and he's not the only one, but he's kind of the ringleader in all this. Mark Warner has huge investments in domestic software and platforms. Well, what's a threat to domestic software and platforms? What's a threat to that bottom line? Well, foreign platforms and software. And if you really look into this bill, how it all started with the Restrict Act, this goes far beyond TikTok or any one entity. This is about trying to demonize foreign platforms, foreign software, foreign information. When you look at the Restrict Act itself, it is straight up the Patriot Act Part 2 in the digital space. And that's what they're trying to pave the road for. They couldn't get away with the Restrict Act on its own, so they're trying to whittle away at it as much as they can. So that's what's really going on here. This guy wants to demonize. And by the way, this will have chilling effects on your ability to use the internet. You might think, well, I don't use TikTok. Why should I care? You should care, because this is going to really restrict, no pun intended, your ability to participate online. One of the things this could do, this could criminalize VPNs. Now, again, I know that they've repackaged this to be more focused on TikTok, but they're going to try to get the entire Restrict Act through slowly but surely. And one of the things the Restrict Act does, it could criminalize your ability to use a VPN. I personally have a VPN, so that could criminalize me. If you have a VPN, it could criminalize you. That's what this is setting the stage for. And again, when it comes to dystopian tech policy, they always go for the slow boil. They couldn't get everything they wanted with the Restrict Act, so they're going to go for the slow boil, and they're going to demonize TikTok. So when Mark Warner says, I'm a tech guy, what he really means is, I have a ton of investments in tech. And if we can get these other entities out of the way via demonizing TikTok, I'm all for it. So there's the censorship component and what we just went through, the financial component for people like Mark Warner. And it's not just him, but he's the big ringleader in this one. So let's go to the other component here, the way this is being sold to the American people. Let's go to the second paragraph from Mark Warner in this quote. What is the problem is that TikTok, which is owned by ByteDance, is a Chinese-controlled company. Based on Chinese law, that company has no option other than to respond to the needs of the Communist Party of China. That takes primacy over return to shareholders or to customers. So in the hearing on TikTok, which we covered live on this show, I covered it live here on Status Coup. What Mark Warner just said is false. And I know that this interview is from back in March, so it's been around a little bit now, but this was after the hearing. So Mark Warner knew what he was saying was actually not true, but he said it anyway. In reality, the information, domestic information on TikTok users in the United States, that information is in the United States and in Singapore. None of it, I repeat, none of it is in China. China offered, or the company that runs TikTok offered to say, hey, look, to alleviate your concerns even further, we're going to here's a proposal where we're going to make sure everything is totally domestic. It's overseen by the US. The information is domestic. You have full control over it. And it stays right here in the US. You have our word. We will cooperate and we will make that happen for you. The United States rejected that offer. And there was that official out of Texas who just said that, I mean, it was just xenophobic and rude. The way he treated that representative from TikTok. And I'm not saying that the Chinese government is perfect. Of course it's not. I'm not saying that there aren't surveillance concerns related to that entity. What I am saying is it's incredibly hypocritical to have no issue with domestic surveillance and only have an issue with foreign surveillance. That's pretty hypocritical, isn't it? And another thing that hearing revealed, all the nefarious things that TikTok does, guess what entities are even freaking worse? Twitter, Facebook, Google, Instagram, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, they are worse than TikTok. Does that mean TikTok doesn't have any concerns? No, of course it does. But no more so. If you're super worried about TikTok from the point of view of privacy, but you have no problems on Twitter or Facebook, you're ill-informed. Because they're actually worse. So there you have it. And let's go ahead and pull up that meme because I really like that meme. I like this one. If you want to steal my data, you gotta be a US-based corporation. We don't have any problem when the US does it. And they're even more nefarious with your data. Mark Zuckerberg has straight up said, you are the prophet. They are getting money. They are getting rich from your data. They do more nefarious things with your data than TikTok does. Yet, TikTok is still the one that's demonized. This policy is being pushed through. And we know why. It's because of financial incentives and it's because of censorship. If they really wanted to do something about data privacy, what they would do instead, and this is what digital rights organizations like Fight for the Future and EFF, this is what everyone's been pushing for, the ACLU. Instead, they would pass a solid data privacy bill protecting consumers, but they don't do that. Why don't they do that? They don't do that because that would hurt their bottom line. That would hurt the bottom line for Mark Zuckerberg, for Elon Musk, for all the big tech lobbyists. That would hurt their bottom line, so they don't want to do that. But they do want to demonize anything foreign, so again, they can make more money and help their portfolio of assets. It's just a bunch of xenophobic fear-mongering. And if they get what they want, you're going to be less free online. So that's the assessment. This isn't about privacy concerns over TikTok. This is about censorship of anti-war ideas. This is about financial incentives for elected officials like Mark Warner. And this is about a bunch of xenophobic fear-mongering to take away more of your digital rights, the same way they did the same thing to get the Patriot Act through. So that's what's really going on. All right. I'm going to chat with you guys. Guys, coming up in about an hour and a half, Johnny F. will be going live in New York for the Rage for Gaza. It's a combination of a bunch of New York campuses coming together. So should be an amazing event. Stay tuned. And I'll announce this. Guys, we have had Status Coup fam at every event I've had the past 2 years. Do not let me down. We got our biggest challenge yet. June 8th, I got a show screening and Q&A. It's going to be a screening of Left at Wall. And by the way, it might be one of the only screenings left that you can catch us Left at Wall because we might be going to distribution soon. What that means is the film's going to be distributed, so we won't be doing screenings anymore. But Idlewild, California. That's a nice little mountain town near Los Angeles. If you're in the Southern California area, come spend a weekend in the mountains. Come spend an evening in the mountains. June 8th, you can get tickets at romplacone.com. That's June 8th, Idlewild, California. Get tickets. We've had Status Coup fam at every event the past 2 years. That includes our last screening in Los Angeles. So please, June 8th, Idlewild, California. And also, I'm going to be in London in September. I'm going to be in London, Sheffield, and Morecambe. Tickets for that aren't available yet, but we'll be announcing all that soon. And you'll be able to get tickets for some UK shows. But for now, June 8th, Idlewild, California. Grab your tickets now. Let's go to Chris Garrett. To a certain extent, it's also an admission that our government has the ability to control the narrative on our corporate media and social media. Abso-freaking-lutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. First of all, Chris, good to see you. Thank you so much for being a member for 34 months. And good to see you today. It's been a minute. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that the Bush administration was faxing talking points to the corporate media. It wasn't that long ago. They were literally faxing talking points to the corporate media, telling them what to talk about. And this was when Iraq was going on. And they lied to us. They lied to us about weapons of mass destruction. Remember all that? So, yeah, I mean, the corporate media and the government are definitely hand in hand. Wall Street and the corporate media are hand in hand. And this is why having a media that's just given away to corporate interest is incredibly toxic. Our news structure in the United States is abysmal. It's illegal in other countries. In other countries that actually have real press freedom, what the United States does would be illegal. The types of, like the advertising models we have where you can just advertise whatever you want on news and information, it would be illegal. Corporate control of the media would be illegal. Our media would be illegal in Norway. So, yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. Just in that 2-minute clip. Let's go ahead. Let's watch it one more time. Again, now that we've gone through what they really admitted to, for anyone who's tuning in later, let's watch the 2-minute clip one more time. And just again, this is all the stuff they're admitting to in that 2 minutes.
Why has the PR been so awful? I know that's not your area of expertise, but you have to have some thoughts on that, which is, I mean, as you've said, why has Hamas disappeared in terms of public perception? An offer is on the table to have a ceasefire, and yet the world is screaming about Israel. It's like, why aren't they screaming about Hamas? Accept the ceasefire, bring home the hostages. It said it's all the other way around. I mean, typically the Israelis are good at PR. What's happened here? How have they and we been so ineffective at communicating the realities there? And
we're on an intravenous feed of information with new impulses, inputs every millisecond. And of course, the way this is played out on social media has dominated the narrative. And you have a social media ecosystem environment in which context, history, facts get lost, and the emotion, the impact of images dominates. And we can't discount that. But I think it also has a very, very, very challenging effect on the narrative.
Yeah, a small parenthetical point, which is some wonder why there was such overwhelming support for us to shut down potentially TikTok or other entities of that nature. If you look at the postings on TikTok and the number of mentions of Palestinians relative to other social media sites, it's overwhelmingly so among TikTok broadcasts. So I'd note that's of real interest, and the president will get the chance to make action in that regard.
So just in that 2 minutes, folks, they admitted that they like to control the war narrative. They need to control a certain narrative. And what's opposing that narrative? Actual footage from what's really going on there. information from people who are there, who have lost their homes, who are scared, who are dying, and people spreading that information. Independent journalists. That's what they're mad about. That's what they don't like. That's what they're mad about on TikTok. They're not mad about the people sharing cat videos. Nothing wrong with cat videos. You guys know me. I love my cat. But they're not mad about that. They're not mad about the people doing makeup tutorials. They're not mad. They're mad about the people sharing information about War and Peace. They just admitted it. They admitted it. And they admitted the war agenda of the corporate media in the United States. Just in that 2 minutes, they showed you their entire ass. And it may have been covered with that goofy Mormon underwear that Mitt Romney probably wears, but they still showed you their entire ass. It's just unreal. Just unreal. And for those of you just tuning in, be sure to revisit this entire segment later because we really break down the TikTok situation from every angle, from the censorship angle, from the financial corruption angle, and from the angle of how they're selling it to the American people via xenophobic nonsense, and how this could impact your ability to use the internet in the future if this thing is allowed to move forward, and what they're going to try to do next. Tony, this is a fantastic question. Ron, where do you look to for hope? What do you see as the end results of these protests? Man. I want to actually, first of all, I want to turn this over to you guys and ask you the same question because I would love to know the answer from y'all. Where do you turn for hope? Answer that question for me. Where do you go for your hope? I'll answer it too, but I want to know where you guys turn for hope because maybe you got some interesting information for me. But to answer the question for me, where do I look to for hope? I see the union efforts all around the country. The Starbucks union efforts, for example, where first it was one store, then it was two stores, then we couldn't even keep track of all the stores. There were so freaking many. That's inspiring. I look at what happened with the UAW. So I look at that rise of labor, and I get hope from that. I get hope from that we're really going to take back the working class because we've lost the middle class in the United States, and without a middle class, you can't really have anything close to a democratic society. Because if people don't have enough food in their belly, if people don't have a roof under their head, if people are working so freaking hard they have to remind themselves to breathe, they can't engage civically. So the powers that be will be able to take and get what they want. A desperate populace is how empires thrive, and it's a requirement. So I see hope when I see labor pushing back. That's a big part of where I get my hope. And also, getting to these protests, when I see young people who are standing up against the war machine, who aren't falling for just the war propaganda and aren't taking the tired hack talking points and instead are challenging the war machine, that gives me hope. When I see a new generation of people who see capitalism as a dirty word because it is, that gives me hope. So, and when I see some victories, when I see some freaking victories, that gives me hope. Colin, let's go real quick, and I'll get back to this chat here in just a minute. But there's something else I wanted to show you guys. Let's go to the net neutrality tweet, Colin. The FCC just restored net neutrality. I know a lot of you knew this already, but some of you might not have. Guys, we won one. We got one. Remember when I'd come on here on Status Coup and there were all those petitions to demand the FCC act on net neutrality? And I said, guys, we got a pro net neutrality FCC. We can freaking do this. This is in our grasp. We got to get this win. And a lot of you participated, and thank you for that. Some of you wanted to be nihilistic about it. You wanted to say, oh, it's hopeless, Ron. We're tired of that. You keep saying no. Well, guess what? We won. We freaking won. That's a policy battle that we won. And we've won other ones. We've lost some too. When I look at some of the policy battles I've really gone to the mat for, there are some wins and there are some losses. Facial recognition, that was a win. Net neutrality, that was a win. For now, although it's ongoing. The antitrust fight, that was a loss. We lost that one. So when you go to the mat for policy, you're going to have some wins and you're going to have some losses. But you know what guarantees a loss? Not frickin' showing up. And I know there's a lot of kind of just nihilistic pessimism. Not so much on this show. Not much on Status Coup. That's part of the reason why I'm here. But you go around to like the whole indie media space or whatever you want to call it, and you see a lot of contrarian nihilism, and I guess people think it makes them sound insightful or cool. I think it's neither of those two things myself, but hey, what do I know? You see a lot of that. Well, guess what? We won one. We won one. And it's really easy to say, I told you so, when you don't show up to fight. It takes actual courage to show up and fight anyway when you know what the odds are against you. That's where true courage comes from. True courage isn't just screaming into a webcam with no policy ideas, with no actual strategy, just screaming into a webcam about everything that's wrong, proposing no solutions, and just kind of profiting off of putting rage porn out into the world. That's not brave. That's not courageous. What's brave and courageous is going on the ground and covering the people putting their necks on the line for peace. What's brave and courageous is what John Farina does, what Tina Desiree Berg does, what Jordan Chariton does. That's why I'm here. A couple years ago, I quit a show. And I quit that show for a large list of reasons. And after I quit that show, I wanted nothing to do with the YouTube space. Not a fucking thing. But Jordan called me about doing some stuff with Status Coup. And I said yes. And I said yes because of the stuff that they do. Because I believe in what outlets like Status Coup are trying to do. I don't believe in that because I agree with every single strategy every single contributor to this network has. We don't agree on everything. That's not how life works. But I believe in being on the ground for the UAW. I believe in having a foot to the ground for what's going on in labor in this country. I believe that it's important not to let stories like Flint die, not to let stories like East Palestine die, because people are suffering and they need to know the truth. I believe in those sort of things. That's why I'm here. So we got a victory, folks. So to really bring it back full circle, Tony, that's where I get my hope from. I get my hope from people that are rolling their sleeves up and doing what it takes to start turning the tides in this country. And I know that things are bleak right now, and it's easy to overlook some wins. It's easy to overlook this net neutrality victory, and I get it. I get that. But you know what? We got to focus on these wins. We got to amplify these wins. You know why? Because learning what works will lead to more wins. And if you don't acknowledge the wins when you get them, well, that's when it's easy to be completely hopeless. That's when it's easy to be completely hopeless. So that's where I get my hope from, folks. That's where I get my hope from. And as far as what do I want to see as the end results of these protests? Well, I want to see a ceasefire now. I want to see a ceasefire. That's what I want. And it's absolutely disgusting watching Joe Biden say that he's not swayed by any of this. It's disgusting to see. And when it comes to this issue, the three major contenders for president are all imperialists. Donald Trump, imperialist. He was at one point criticizing Biden for not being hawkish enough. Joe Biden, obviously imperialist. And RFK, who is tragic. It's so disgusting. That, man, I mean, we've dreamed for years of a real third party alternative that had a chance at the duopoly because of size, and we're finally amidst that, and it's freaking RFK. God, that is so disappointing. We're finally amidst that, and it's really not even an alternative. God, that is so disappointing. But if you want an anti-imperialist, you got to look at Jill Stein. You got to look at Cornel West. You got to look at the socialist candidates. Those are your actually anti-war candidates. But that's what I'd like to see. What's up, Des Bush Fleisch? How are you? Restrict Act. I always thought the more euphemistic the name, the more terrible the bill. But that doesn't appear to be the case here. Yeah, we talked about that when it happened. It's like, wow, they're not even trying to hide it with the name. They're just being on the nose with the name. They don't even care. They're calling it the Restrict Act. They didn't even run that through a focus group. They're like, yeah, it restricts your rights. And screw you. What's up, Teresa? How are you? I haven't seen you in a while. It's good to see you. Thank you very much for the super chat contribution. How you doing today? Let me know. So smart, so stupid. Thank you for being a member for 4 months. Yay, yay, yay. 4 months and Palestine, hurrah, hurrah. Thank you very much for that. I don't know what that means exactly. What is that reference? But thank you very much for your membership. Although I'm not sure I understand what that means. What does that mean? Anyway, yeah. Let me go. So where do you guys get your hope? I'm looking for people saying where they got their hope from, Colin. I need some thoughts from other hope people. Hope. Let's turn it into Barack Obama. Oh, free Palestine. Oh, that's what it means. Oh, okay. All right. All right. I should have put that together. Sometimes, like, if it doesn't click with you and you're like in real time, like you never, yeah. Yeah. There is always hope. Don't you cry by Sunday Scary is discreet. Dance. Hope. I hear you. But yeah. Yeah, sometimes with people, because I remember there's times where my hope is for Cornel West. I like Cornel. I like Cornel West a lot. I'm very disappointed by what he did with the campaign. I'm bummed out about he left the Greens. Because I'll tell you what, and I know it's not going to happen. If him and Jill Stein were a unified ticket right now under the Green Party banner, we'd get to 5%. We'd get to 5%. And I know it's not going to happen. I'm not blaming anybody for it. It just bums me out. It just bums me the hell out. I'm not going to blame Cornel West. I'm not going to blame Jill Stein. I'm not going to blame the Green Party. I'm not going to blame anyone. I'm just going to say it bums me the hell out that those two aren't a unified ticket. It bums me the heck out. We just can't have nice things, can we? We just can't do it. Let's see. So let me see. Did I get everyone? Thank you again. Thank you, Chris Garrett. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Des Bush Fleisch. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, So Smart, So Stupid. And guys, if you want to be a Status Coup member, you can join over at statuscoup.com/join. Right, Colin? Everything's copacetic, right? They can go to statuscoup.com/join.
Correct. Yep.
There we go. Colin on the ones and twos. Yeah, statuscoup.com/join. 16 cents a day, folks. That's all it takes. And I know times are tough. I really do. So if that's not something you can spare, totally get it. But if you can, know that it goes to support on the ground journalism. It sends Johnny F on the ground. It sends Jordan on the ground, sends Tina on the ground. Sometimes it even sends me on the ground. Sometimes they got to get the Placone enforcements up on that ground. Not all the time. They're more the journalists, not me. I'm the comedian / digital rights nerd, whatever you want to call me. But sometimes even I jump down on the ground. So yeah, that's what you're supporting. And journalism costs resources. But when you have a corporate controlled media, This is all we got. This is all we got. So, yeah. And guys, I will mention one more time here as we're signing out. June 8th, mark your calendars. June 8th for everyone in Southern California. Get tickets now, ronplacone.com. There will be a short stand-up show, a screening of my movie Left at Wall, and then a Q&A after. And my movie might get distributed soon. So if you're in the Southern California area and you want to catch it on the big screen, which I hope you do, get tickets for June 8th. Come join us in Idlewild. ronplacone.com for tickets. Again, that's June 8th. And September, I'm going to be coming to the UK. So keep an eye out for tickets. Everyone in London, Sheffield, Morecambe, going to be coming to England in September. ronplacone.com for all those tickets. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. Let me thank everyone again. Thank you, Chris Garrett. Thank you, Tony D. Thank you, Des Bushflies. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, So Smart, So Stupid. Thank you guys for being here. And here, let me address this. In Excess, what's up? Is it the entire band or just one of the members? Which member of In Excess am I talking to? Tell me. Left at Wall is my movie. Left at Wall is my movie. I made a movie. Took me 2.5 years when all was said and done. But I made a movie called Left at Wall that I'm really proud of and I really want the world to see. Some people have seen it already. I know that Chris has seen it. Chris Garrett's seen it because I've done some virtual streams and I've also done some virtual screenings and I've also done some live screenings. Did a screening in Pittsburgh that was sold out. Thank you, Pittsburgh. I know some of you guys were there. Did a screening in LA and we got a screening coming up June 8th in Idlewild, California. Get tickets now. You can get tickets for June 8th now at ronplacone.com. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your support. Stay tuned. You can hang out in the chat and they'll just bump you right over to Johnny F, who is going to be in New York City. Let's put that up again, Colin. Johnny F is going to be at the Rage for Palestine, and that's coming up today. It'll kick off around either 6 p.m. Eastern or 6:30 p.m. Eastern. So around there, it just depends on when, the event kicks off and when he's able to just kick it into gear live. You guys know how that goes. But he's going to be on the ground covering that event, which is definitely going to be amazing and incredibly informative. And yeah, so guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for breaking down the TikTok issue with me. Thank you for giving me some hope. Again, Idlewild, California, June 8th. Grab your tickets. And this is Ron Placone for Status Coup, signing out.